So in your modules, you guys have got yourself to the next project that has to do with perspective. And it's this project that says Illustrator Perspective. And I'm just going to go over some of the requirements to start it off and give you guys some tips on how to start it off as well. So in here, it should remind you what you're doing. So your job is to make a city scene or like an urban scene. You have buildings, you're going to have a sky and ground, and you're using the perspective grid and tools to help you. You need at least 3 buildings. You need at least 1 gradient with a shape. You can definitely do more. You need some windows and doors. I'm going to show you how to do that. So I'm going to show you steps 1 through 4 in this video. And then on this assignment are some examples of student work, various skill levels. Obviously this is more advanced, but this is still 1-point perspective. So different ways of approaching this, and you guys should have a pretty basic sketch of what you're going to do with an idea. So we're going to start this with an 11 by 17 inch artboard. So when you get to Illustrator, you are going to go to File, New, and we'll just name it Your Name Perspective Project. And we want this to be a size custom, so keep it as 1 artboard and then tell this to be units, inches. We'll make this horizontal for most of you guys. So the width will be 17, and I'm tabbing over to the height, which will be 11. Make sure it says inches. It should know to be horizontal, so this is activated and you hit OK. So a new artboard pops up. So when we print this, it knows to print at 11 by 17. So we're going to right away get some layers out and make some new layers. In your first layer, you're going to call this Sky. Double click your second one. We'll call it Ground. Double click your third one. We'll call it Building 1. And your fourth one, Building 2. And let's do one more for today, Building 3. Okay. So I'm going to go over some tips, and you guys can approach this how you'd like. You're just going to make sure that as you guys are designing in Illustrator that you are keeping things in layers so that they're easy to find. You know how to change, delete, resize, whatever, because you have them in your layers ready for you. So we need to get the perspective grid up. So that is View, Perspective, 1 point, 1p normal. And you'll see this grid pops up. Now remember that this works with the perspective grid tool, which lives over here in the right side towards the middle. Shift P is the shortcut. I activate that, and now I have access to change my grid around. Move it. Now just because your grid doesn't cover your artboard doesn't mean that we can't draw. Like over here. Just because the grid isn't over here doesn't mean we can't draw it over here, okay? So look at your sketch and understand where you kind of have your vanishing point depending on how you designed your idea, and place your vanishing point the way you have it. Look at the horizon line. Do you have more of the ground showing, more of the sky showing? You put your horizon line where you see that. If yours is right smack in the middle, then you put it right in the middle of your artboard as best you can, okay? So you're going to take some time to kind of rework the grid here. And again, just because this isn't over here doesn't mean it's not going to design over there. Like I can still put my rectangle here, even though it's beyond the grid, okay? Okay, so let's get started. I would throw in right away your sky and your ground. And those guys are actually not in perspective. They're flat shapes. So when you're in the perspective tool or the shape tool, rectangle tool, you're going to go up to the hexagon and hit no active grid. So it's light blue. And then you're going to go to your sky layer, activate it. In your rectangle tool, your sky is going to be clicked and dragged up until the horizon line. So I can see my horizon line. It's right here. So that's the top of my sky. Now you are going to choose swatches from here or from here, the color of your sky. Might be blue. Okay. Illustrator, if you have all your swatches popping up, has a sky color that kind of pops up here for you in gradient. It's just the wrong direction. So when I get my gradient tool, which is G, I'm going to tell it to be the other direction. So you might want to have a gradient for your sky. Remember that one of the requirements is to have at least one gradient. If you want to make your own gradient, you go to the gradient panel, which we played a little bit with before, and you can double click and choose your own colors. You should see it change as you go. Okay, so you throw in your sky. Again, you might like the gradient, and that would be a chance to do it. You can see that this goes up until my horizon line, up until the ground layer. So now I'm going to do my ground. Click to highlight and activate the layer. Hit M or click your rectangle tool. And this is a city scene, so my city scene, I'm thinking pavement, concrete, road. So I'm going to go for a gray color here. So let's get the color first of your choice. You can always change it. I'm going to put no stroke on mine. And then right butted up against the sky is my ground. Now I think that's a little bit dark to start off, so I'm going to just make that a little lighter. You choose what you'd like. So right now we have our sky and our ground, and it's set. And one thing you can do once you have these two to start, and you don't want to move or hit these by accident, you can go to your layers and click to the right of your eyeball. Don't make your eyeball go away, but put a lock on there. So that now I can't access these. Even if I go to my selection tool, nothing happens. It won't move. If I want to move them, I unlock it. I click with my selection tool, right? And then I'll have access to move. Okay. So that's my suggestion there for the sky and the ground. Let's do a couple buildings together. The buildings are going to be in a rectangle tool. So I'm going to go to building 1, activate it. I'm going to grab my rectangle tool. I'm going to go up to my hexagon, tell it to be in blue. So I'm going to draw a building on the left-hand side. I want my building to be like a brick color. So I'm going to come grab a color that I like. Okay. Building 1's going to be over here. Now you decide where it sits on the ground. So just because the grid ends here doesn't mean your building has to sit there. You can decide. That's why they have multiple little lines. So, for example, there's that. See how I have it right against this line? And right now, I'm going to make one more over here. I'm going to make this one a little bit smaller, but it's going to still sit on the same ground layer. So because these sit on the same ground, I'm not going to have this go lower. I'm going to hit Shift V, grab my selection tool, right? So show you what I mean. If I were to lower this, they're on different planes, and that's not how buildings would work. So you're using that one line you decided upon. I'm going to click with my Shift V so I can make this a little bit bigger. Maybe I just want it to be taller. I don't want it to change here. So there's my two buildings on the left. I'm going to grab this guy, which is building 2. If you guys accidentally do this as you're working, you can always move this to the correct layer. So that is selected, and in our layer, it tells me it's selected. So all I need to do is grab that little rectangle and drag it up to the layer I want. So now it's in its own correct layer, and close that little triangle. That's how you open a layer and close it. Okay, so now they're in their own layers. We need to do the sides. Now remember that in 1-point perspective, everything else is horizontal and vertical if it doesn't come from the vanishing point. So these guys are vertical, vanishing point, vanishing point. That means the sides here of the building, top and bottom, are going to be horizontal, so the rectangle is going to be flat. So I need to go up to my hexagon icon and click on the top right, make it light blue. Grab the rectangle. I'm going to double click this, just make it a darker color. I'm going to tell that I'm in building 1 right now. I'm going to draw from the top to the bottom a flat rectangle. It goes from the top to the bottom, and I drag out, decide how deep in space I want that to be. That's not dark enough to me, so I'm going to double click that again, make that darker. Okay, so you choose how you want that to be. You don't have to have the same colors as me at all. I'm going to click off of that selection tool, make sure that everything is lined up correctly. Those corners touch. Those corners touch. So basically, to make it look like a building, I have a rectangle in perspective and a rectangle that's flat. The grid's not active. Let's do the same thing on building 2. Highlight and activate. Rectangle. That didn't stay the color you wanted. Get the color you want. Nope, that was selected. I'm going to grab my eyedropper tool, which is eye, and just pick up that color. So I can pick any of these colors here, and you can see that this changes. That was just eye. I'm going to grab the same color. Back to M or rectangle. Make sure I'm still in building 2 layer. Just hitting Command plus to zoom in and get right up close here. Top to bottom, put it there. Okay? Click off. Now, one issue is I don't want this building to be in front of this building. It should be behind. And the reason it's in front is because this layer is on top. So I'm just going to take this layer and I'm going to drag it below. And now this guy's on top of that, which is what I want. So there's 2 buildings. You might have a 3rd building over here. Something might look like this. If I'm drawing on the right, I still have it left, dark blue. I'm going to hit Shift P. I'm going to grab them. My building ends 1, 2, 3 up. I'm going to just bring this over to the other side for this to help me. 1, 2, 3 up. So M. And draw my 3rd building here. And it ends right there. And I want it to be this light color, so I hit my eyedropper tool, click that color, tell it to be that. Back to Shift V. Make it fit in my artboard. Okay. Back to M. No active grid. Draw the side. It's a flat rectangle. Back to I. Get that darker red brick color. So there's all 3 of my buildings now. And I could add a couple windows. All I have to do is, again, grab my rectangles, tell them what building I'm in, and I'll just do a door real quick. So I need to make sure I'm in the blue. It knows I'm on the left side. I'm going to draw a little door and choose a color that I'd like for it. Alright? Same thing would be done for windows. So this is how you would start out the basics.